a very common question for people applying for disability and who already have an ongoing case is, what happens if I try to work while my disability case is going on? So first, a caveat. Every situation is different. I'm gonna give a couple generalizations, but there's exceptions to every rule, and your situation is unique, and don't consider this a specific answer on your situation. But generally speaking, there's a couple thoughts that I have that I usually share with anybody that's in this position of considering work while you've got a disability case going on. Number one, there is a certain amount of money that you can make that would disqualify you from receiving disability. Now that's whether you've been on disability for years or if you're applying and they're considering whether to approve you or not. If you're earning more than substantial gainful activity, which is defined not by the hours of work that you do in a week or a day, it's measured by the amount of money that you make in a month, which is an odd way to think about income. We usually think about income in terms of an hourly rate or an annual salary. Well, Social Security thinks about it in terms of monthly, how much you make before taxes. It is a low bar. If you are working any type of full-time work, you're gonna be over the limit, but the amount for the year 2026 is $1,690. It goes up a little bit every year. That's what it is for this year, 2026. If you're over that amount, you're earning SGA, and there are some exceptions, but generally speaking, if you're working without any special accommodations and you're over that amount, you're out. You can't be considered disabled for that period of time. So some people think about, well, if I went back to work, what if I kept the earnings below that threshold? So I'm only working part-time. So there's something you need to remember, which is that a person applying for disability, Social Security doesn't define disability by having a condition. You know, you have this condition, well, that's a disability. You have a condition, that's a disability. Their definition of disability is you have health conditions that prevent you from working. So if you are choosing to work less than the full-time hours that would put you over the limit because you want to remain eligible, as opposed to that's all you can do, Social Security will interpret that as, well, you can work more, you just don't want to. So keeping that in mind, there's part-time work that you could do that, while keeping you technically eligible because it's under the limit, especially if you have not yet had a disability decision, keep in mind that any of that work activity will be considered by the decision maker in deciding whether or not you should receive disability. And if you're doing things in that part-time work that contradict your claim, then that is going to be used against you. And let me give you an example. If you are claiming that you are disabled because of arthritis in your knees, so you can't stand for long periods of time, you can't walk for very long because your knees have extreme pain when you try to do things like that. And then let's also imagine you're working a part-time job as a Walmart greeter, 1 day a week. So that 1 day a week's never gonna put you over the limit for earnings, but in that 1 day, you work an 8-hour shift and you stand all day. So if you go into a disability hearing and tell a judge, I can't walk for more than 5 minutes, I can't stand for more than 5 minutes, but also I'm working 1 day a week where I stand for 8 hours in a shift, that's a major contradiction. So part-time work can create contradictions in the claim, and if it does, then it's a problem for your claim. On the other hand, there's other types of part-time work that may not cause any contradictions at all. For example, if the part-time work you're doing is gig work, like working for Uber, where you can do work when you're feeling well enough to do so, and you can take time off whenever you want because no one's expecting you to be there. That usually doesn't create the same types of contradictions that I was talking about before. So everything about the part-time work, depending on the case-by-case situation, could potentially hurt your claim. However, it doesn't necessarily, but it's always possible. So anytime a person has ongoing part-time work activity, that does create the possibility that it could damage your chances of being approved in the end. But another thing I always tell my clients that ask me this question is, especially if they're considering full-time work, should I try to work? What's going to happen? I never think it's a great idea to just get rid of your disability case because you're going to try to work full-time. And here's why. It's not necessarily true that, and you may not even know if the work attempt is going to be successful. So you may think that your conditions won't prevent you from doing the job that you're setting out to do, but let's imagine a month from now, your health does prevent you from doing that job, you lose the job, and now you're not working. So I don't think it's worth it to start over a disability claim that perhaps you've been waiting on for months or even years when you don't know yet if the job is going to work out. So I always use this as the let's wait and see situation. That's the approach I take. Let's at least see if a few months from now you're still doing that job. And if you are doing it full time, maybe that means that your disability case needs to be withdrawn because it's no longer viable. Something I'll say about that is, if you have a disability case and you need to withdraw it because you're working full time, because you found out that there's work that you can do full time, that's a great result to your disability case, because if you're working, that's a better thing for you than being on disability. You're going to make more money, you're going to have more satisfaction. Disability is for people who can't work, everybody needs money, everybody needs to work. I understand that. But disability is there for people who can't work to make that money. So they need help from the government. And not everybody who's in this situation knows if they can do jobs that they've never done before. And they need to find out. But in the end, if you have to dismiss your case because you found a job and it's working out for you, I'm going to be happy for you. My job as your lawyer, if I'm your lawyer, is to do what's in your best interest. And most of the time, if you can work, my belief is that that is what's in your best interest instead of pursuing disability. So even if I don't make a fee because your case is withdrawn, I'm still going to consider that successful representation because I'm doing what's best for you by advising you to withdraw the claim and encourage you to continue with that job. Can I add a thing to it that just, because again, this doesn't have to be perfectly edited because it's just for clients. So after all of that explanation, if you're a client that has received this video because you had questions about work, hopefully I've answered the questions that you had. We, as your representatives, are never going to tell you whether to work or not. I see my job as giving you the lay of the land, giving you my best explanation as I can as how work would affect your case if you did try to do it. We talked about if it works out, obviously you may need to withdraw your case, but if you make a work attempt and it fails, that can be very good evidence of disability because it shows what happens when you try to work. I'm not suggesting that you enter a work attempt by design to have it fail, but if it does, that can mean that your disability case is still viable. If this answered your questions, good. If you still have questions, we can talk about your specific situation and see if I have any additional thoughts, and I'd be happy to meet with you. This conversation here, this video, is mainly designed to answer broad questions if you're just kind of in the contemplative stage but you don't have any specifics yet. But if you do have specifics and you want to know exactly how it might impact your case or how some work part-time that you're doing might negatively impact your case, I can give you my opinion on that and I'd be happy to meet with you. So just call in and set up an appointment.